Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Through the Glass Columns, your weekly Wheel of Time read-along podcast. I, of course, am Tylor, your host, who honestly is kind of glad to be getting through Book 8. We're almost there. And I am joined by Greg, who, kind of called that nothing would happen this week. How are you doing, Greg?
I kind of called it, and I was so very close to calling the last moment of this week's show, which I will keep mum on until we get there. But I basically called it directly, except I forgot about magic, which is a thing in these books. But I'm good,
Yeah.
Tyler. It is exciting to be wrapping up. I always get excited when I can chalk another one up in my reading total for the year. And, I don't know that I'll be revisiting The Path of Daggers anytime soon.
That's valid. This week, we are talking about the second to last week of this book. That is Chapter 27, The Bargain, and Chapter 28, Crimsonthorn. It is nice to get into multiple characters' perspectives, which we got this week, and it's good to get some development in some of these plots, even if it's not the single most exciting stuff we've ever read. How are you feeling overall? I understand not revisiting it soon, but how's this book landing for you as we're now 1 week away from the end?
I mean, I've heard you characterize that we're now like in the slog, which kind of makes sense. In most films, Act 2 is in many ways the worst act, right? So We're done meeting everybody, we're done introducing things, and then it's just kind of setting things up for presumably 2 or 3 books that are like out of this world. So it feels a little sloggish, but not in a way where I'm like, I can't believe I have to keep reading this or anything like that. I care enough about these characters and I'm invested that obviously I'll keep going, and the show marches on. We are, dear listeners, probably going to take a couple weeks off in between books, which we haven't done lately, and we'll keep reminding you of that just so you don't go nuts. Though it is still, even with that, I would go ahead and order your copy of Winter's Heart, which I'm holding mine up because it's on deck. It's ready to go. We can record this, and then I can go upstairs and finish this one, and then I could probably even read the first part of this one, but we'll wait off on that.
We are getting towards the end, and that's exciting. And let's get to the end. I'm about ready to summarize Chapter 27, The Bargain. Min reads one of Herodfel's books, and she struggles to focus thinking about Rand. She hopes not to see Cerelia or Cadsuane enter, particularly Cerelia, who seems protective of both Rand and Min, but also is very curious about their sex life, and Min does not like that. Rand then enters, saying that the Aiel largely ignored him, and Min makes it clear that she is upset at his long absence and his lack of communication. She yells at him for only sending a total of 2 letters, and eventually he tries to quiet her by kissing her. Rand says that he killed Adley, which seems to chill Min, and then Dobrain enters and notes that the city has adopted Min's way of dressing and many of her mannerisms. Dobrain then reports that he has acted on all of Rand's letters, many more than Min received, and we learn that Torum Riotin is missing and has been abandoned by David Hanlon and Padden Fane. He also questions the wisdom of Rand bringing rival nobles into the city, and Rand says that Wiramon is here because he makes so many mistakes that Rand can't even trust him to be on his own. Caroline Damodred and Darlin are apparently being held by Cadsuane, and when Min is asked for advice about them, all that she can say is that they are going to marry according to her prophecy, but nothing else. At this point, 2 Aes Sedai enter, Marana and another, and Marana reports on discussions with the Sea Folk. They apparently agreed to Rand's needs. However, there are 4 conditions to them meeting them. 1 is that there will be no changes to Sea Folk laws, and 2, that a plot of land will be given in every city that is on the water, although Rand has plans about how to subvert that order so it doesn't destroy kingdoms. But the 3rd and 4th conditions seem to upset Rand. They are that Rand will keep a Sea Folk advisor, and that Rand will go when the Sea Folk summon him, a maximum of twice every 3 years. Rand seems very upset about this, but the Aes Sedai say that he should have stayed to help them negotiate, and they note how the Sea Folk raked them over the coals once he left. Rand eventually thanks them and then summons Cadsuane. Outside the room, the Aiel are lining the corridor and seemingly playing rock, paper, scissors about something, and then Rand asks Min about the vision that Cadsuane will teach something to all of the Ashaman. Rand tells Min that he needs her when 3 maidens enter and start pummeling Rand while keeping Min from protecting him. They say this is is how they treat a brother who betrayed them, and he broke their promise to allow them to fight for him. Rand defends their right to beat him while Min objects, and then Daigen in Aes Sedai arrives with a message from Cadsuane that she will come later after she finishes her needlepoint. Rand curses Cadsuane, but Min says he needs her, and she doesn't need him. We then have a break, presumably for Rand and Min to do what they had been talking about doing for that entire section of the chapter, and then Rand dresses, noting Alana's emotions and pain in the back of his mind. Min says that his plan is lunacy, but Rand only tells her that she is staying in the room. Rand has Narishma guard his room with Min in it, and brings the rest of the Ashaman along with him and asks to see Cadsuane. Rand insists that Dashiva give Rand a power-enhanced announcement, but Cadsuane mocks it as unimpressive, and Flynn laughs at this while Mor and Hopwill seem confused. Rand orders them to wait outside, and then he channels to adjust the temperature, and Cadsuane mocks his crown, saying that she has punished multiple kings and queens before, so she won't be intimidated. He asks her to be his advisor, and she says no. He then offers that she will swear no oaths to him, and she says that sounds better, and she promises she will do what is in his best interest rather than her own or the tower's best interest. Cadsuane then sets rules about civility and not channeling at her and not allowing any Aes Sedai to channel around her. She says that she hopes he hasn't used Callandor, and when he questions this, she says that Callandor is flawed, magnifying the madness of any man who uses it unless it is used in a circle that is led by a woman. He thinks that this was likely the cause of him attacking his own army, and then Cadsuane reminds him to ask nicely if he wants anything. Rand thinks that he now has only one option for his plans, and he remembers a dead woman telling him that he could change creation with whatever he is planning. So, Rand update. What did we think of the bargain?
I mean, I feel like a million times I have sung Hamilton into this microphone on this show, but this felt very much like a winning is easy, young man, governing's harder. That the point here is that to keep this coalition together, Rand has to continually make bargains. Hey, that's the name of the chapter. And just sacrifice, more than he wants. And there was some of this when he was on the military campaign, right? That it was costing him too much. So it's not really that winning is easy, but it certainly seems like he doesn't feel like an all-powerful ruler in this chapter, right? It's very much he is in a cage and unable to actually do what he wants.
So given that Rand is kind of all throughout this chapter and honestly is mostly reacting to things, as you're saying, he doesn't have a lot of agency, it seems like, I kind of want to take this other character by other character and think about all of the people who are kind of coming in and out of first Rand's room and then Cadsuane's. So we're going to start here with Min, who is reading philosophy and is pissed off at Rand and forgets that she's pissed off at Rand as soon as he smiles at her, which honestly I kind of believe of like a 21-year-old, but...
Yeah. Sounds like a college girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I do think, it sounds exactly right. Like, you can be so resentful in like, oh, I haven't been considered and I've just been left to rot here. But then it's like, oh, but we're reunited and we're happy. And, that feels, like you're saying, natural to a 21-year-old. And I also feel like Min still feels like herself, right? Yeah. I mean, I hate to do to Min what I do every time somebody in my life starts dating, which is like, how much of you is left in this version of you I get now? Or how much of you suddenly has a new hobby that you're pretending to like or what have you? So, and I feel like I need to say, in case any friends are listening, like, that's not directed at anybody specifically. That's just like people in relationships, right? That
in fact, our friend who is in the newest relationship hasn't changed all that much. So good job.
Yeah. So I do think I think it just kind of fits and it works. And it's funny because Fail and Min have been kind of left in similar situations where it's like the dudes are doing a lot of stuff. And I also think the lesson of both of them is that they are having far greater impact than it seems. And we get the kind of ripple here that like she's clearly an icon to the kingdom and they're dressing like her and they want to be like her. And like, to me, that is a rare insight into like the everyday commoner. So clearly she's, somebody they admire. And, it feels a little like, I don't know, like Princess Di in the tabloids or something. But like, I kind of dig it.
Yeah, I really love that moment. I think it's really funny that they refer to her as Madame Taviran because of all of the changes she's making, which is just awesome. And then also just how scandalized they are by the idea of a coat that doesn't cover one's hips. And given that I don't think I've ever owned a coat that covers one's hips, and I don't know that my wife ever has, that's hilarious to me. Dobrain is the one who arrives with the nickname Lady Taviran, and he also brings some updates about the rebellion, which we've kind of forgotten about because it was towards the end of book 7 and it's been a while since we were there. But just as a reminder, there was that gathering of all the Terran and Kyrianan nobles who were not aligned with Rand. That was Torum Riotin, Caroline Damodred, and several others. And we learned that they were being influenced by Padden Fane. I think the big update here is that Torum Riotin is missing, Padden Fane is also missing, and David Hanlon has clearly abandoned the rebellion. And that last name is one that we should be keeping in mind for like 30 minutes from now.
I mean, it very much felt to me like these three people will return in, next James Bond movie or next Avengers movie. Pick your franchise that you prefer. Yeah. And so it especially because we're in the last phase of the book, it's like, yep, these threats are still out there. And that's, I don't know if it's fair to put something like that against this for like the slog, quote unquote. But it does feel like when you're continually like kind of batting away a villain and they don't get defeated, that's where you're just kind of treading water to extend this a few books.
Yeah, I feel like this is the book maybe more than any other that just feels like it's kind of kicking plot lines down the road a little bit, right? The updates aren't uninteresting, but there's not a lot of finished to most of them. It kind of feels like we're just treading water a little bit. I don't have too much else to say about Dobrain. He doesn't really have much here. So let's jump into then the arrival of the Aes Sedai, specifically Mirana, who is reporting on the negotiations with the Sea Folk. And Rand seems upset about it, but I'll be honest, the only one of these conditions that I felt like was really a problem is the one that Rand had an immediate solution for, which was putting like a plot of land along the river. Being able to charge taxes on what comes in through the river is all the countries need, and Rand figures that out. But Rand is furious about the outcome of this negotiation.
Well, it felt to me the fourth one was the most superficially awful, where it's like, and just for appearances, you have to come bow to us, and the world has to see that you answer our beck and call. And it really felt like what we've seen in modern politics a few times lately, the fact that the current administration can just call in the president of Ukraine and make him show up and then make fun of how he's dressed when he shows up. It kind of felt like that, like an exercise in power and humiliation, which is not warranted in the real world, but is like, that's the point. And this again felt like, well, Rand is a good leader if he doesn't care about if he works around the substantive one and doesn't care about the superficial one. But at the same time, the like effect is, well, yeah, but when this eventually happens, what is it going to look like and what effect will that have on his reign?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good call. And the thing that surprised me the most about Rand's response to it wasn't kind of what he got angry about, because I think you're right. That's actually quite rational and a sign of a good leader. It was how quickly he flipped from being absolutely furious to like, yeah, you did all you could. It felt like that willingness to accept the, not excuse, but the reason was my sign. Hey, Rand is actually being a good leader here, even if he's kind of frustrated about superficial things.
Yeah, and I mean, this I guess, switching metaphors from Hamilton, it's like, it's plate spinning, right? And he like recognizes like, hey, this plate started to wobble because I wasn't here. Now I'm back, and if I freak out and get angry, it's just going to be harder for me to leave and go attend to one of the other spinning plates again. So it did feel like, okay, he's making the right choice, even if it is, again, kind of feeling like it undercuts him as a serious leader to us.
No, I think that's right.
Well, I don't mean serious leader. It undercuts him as a chosen one, right? Like he's supposed to be like supernaturally awesome, like, and usually when we find a chosen one, everything just goes their way, and this is clearly not exactly going his way.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Let's then talk about Rand just getting his ass beat, right? The Aiel apparently, like, have a contest out in the hallway to decide who gets to just pummel the crap out of him, and then 3 of them do. And Rand's response is kind of like, well, I deserved that, and maybe he did, but that was a surprising moment, if nothing else.
I mean, it was funny to kind of picture him continuing a conversation and being like, yeah, so, and because, and like, it felt kind of cartoonish. And, you know, actually the real world analog to me is the very fake conspiracy fronted by the right wing that Sharia law is going to be enacted in some neighborhood. Yeah. And like, in this case, this was like a leader who is following his religious beliefs, right? Or I don't know if religion is right, but like,
yeah.
Cultural or that's better. So it's like, yeah, he knows that this is a part of the honor system and that if he's going to continue to have their loyalty, he has to take the blows. And it just is very funny because it's like, you know, it's not like it's like somebody just like rapping him on the knuckles. It's like a bunch of warriors doing their best to really hurt him.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's something, the reason that this doesn't feel like as bad as it very well could, because you're right, it's literally a bunch of warriors attacking Rand. It's the moment where they say, this is how we would treat our brother. And that's kind of the moment where I was like, oh, this is kind of that like deep cultural moment more than it is just like, we're going to beat you up because you did something bad. And that really kind of sold it for me. The only other thing I kind of have here is they are very clear they wanted to go to war. And so I'm kind of curious to see how much this does or doesn't change Rand's attitude of leave the maidens behind, because they make it clear next time they're coming with weapons.
And it reminded me, I think, you know, I understand there were some Aiel who win on the big fight, just not the maidens, right? Are there male Aiel that win on the mission?
With Rand, no. Rand entirely had nobles and their retainers.
So it's just a reminder, like, there's this huge army he has that's just kind of chilling and hanging out in their tents and so on. So I don't know that I understand the rationale behind that. Actually, I understand Rand doesn't want women to be killed and he's a little sexist in his beliefs. But, well, and he's sensitive to anybody getting killed, not just women. But then, like, metatextually, it's like, well, are we keeping this in reserve so that we have, you know, the one more army to form up ranks and charge at some point? Or are these on the back burner because we still have to figure out the loose faction that's still out there running, and that's better for Aiel action? So I guess I found myself trying to guess what Robert Jordan's motives were, and I came up pretty blank on what I thought, like, really made sense.
Yeah, no, and it's a difficult challenge, right? There's so, as you said before, there's so many plates spinning right now. It's really hard to tell what is the ball getting dropped and what is things wobbling just because there's 87 plates, right? And this could be either of those, or as you're saying, some like deeper, and we need this available for whatever. And I find that really interesting. The only other thought I had here is this is the first of kind of the chickens come home to roost, right? Like the Aiel were left behind and it's a problem. The sea folk were left behind and it's maybe not much of a problem. I'm now starting to like count what other forces or things haven't we checked in on yet that could blow up in Rand's face. And the two that came to mind immediately was, it doesn't seem like we've resolved anything with the wise ones and the captive Aes Sedai, and so that could very well have changed dramatically. And then the other was, we get hints at this later, but the Ashaman are clearly still kind of not completely resolved, especially after several of them were killed in the conflict.
Saying exactly what you said in a different way, I was playing my game of like, okay, what is the bargain? And it's like, well, any of these things could be the bargain, and we have a couple more to come. Yeah. So, I think already, even without all of those being on the plate in our chronological order here, it feels like the bargain is just, if you want to lead, you have to compromise all the time. Like, that's the bargain with a capital B.
I'm not going to quite talk about Cadsuane yet, even though chronologically she may be next in the order, because I want to talk about the Ashaman a little bit. So Narishma, who is the Ashaman that Rand has kind of pinned his hopes on as the one I can trust, he is the one who was sent to go get Callandor, he is left to guard Min. And from what we know about Rand and women, that probably means that is the spot to be, right? Like, that is how we know that Rand continues to trust Narishma. The moment that I kind of thought was really telling is when... Not Narishma, the other one. Flynn. No, not Flynn. Dashiva.
I don't know.
Flynn is with them. Dashiva is asked to channel in front of Cadsuane, and Cadsuane brushes it off, right? Now, Dashiva seems like perturbed by having to do this at all, and then kind of is nonplussed by Cadsuane's reaction. Flynn laughs in Rand's face. He thought that Cadsuane brushing it off was hilarious. And then the two other Ashaman with them, that is Moore and Hopwill, are both kind of confused and seem almost frustrated by it. And given that we don't get any Ashaman discussing amongst each other, that kind of reaction to Rand being humbled, I think, is all of the detail we're going to get about where the Ashaman are at. So are you reading anything in those tea leaves, I guess, is my question.
Even Narishma doesn't strike me as like totally trustworthy. I mean, yes, he's separated from the rest, but it's like Ashaman are just bad guys to me. Like, whenever the coin finally turns, that's fine, but I just don't trust any of them at this point.
No, that's totally fair. Let's then talk about Cadsuane. We actually get our first reminder of Cadsuane in this chapter is Min saying, "Remember my vision." Cadsuane will teach you something, and she will teach the Ashaman something. And that, I think, is a good kind of place to start, because once we get into Cadsuane's apartment, she more or less completely disrespects Rand at every single possible opportunity. She refuses to give him even a semblance of the suggestion that he is in control of the situation. And that was both very interesting to see how Rand reacted to it, and I spent a lot of the time thinking, like, this is the opposite of Moraine. And I was really curious about that kind of dichotomy between the two Aes Sedai who have kind of had that advisor role.
Well, and it's right to remember that Cadsuane is the really, really old one.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes. And so to me, that kind of dominated my thinking here, because I only see women by age. No, I don't really. It just was an easy joke to make at my own expense. So to me, it felt like to her, this is a boy playing with his toys, and she has no reason to take him seriously, and so will not. Even though, like, nobody else has ever treated him that way. I mean, we got Min's, like, silly sheep herder jokes, but, like, it's pretty clear now he's like a once-in-an-age power that will bring about the end times. And she's like, yeah, whatever, man. Like, you're cute. You're funny. Like, not cute as in, like, I want to smoochy kiss you, but cute as in, like, it's funny you think you have power.
First off, excellent use of smoochy kiss. That was wonderful.
Bluey has infected our house so bad.
Yeah.
My daughter the other day just started yelling, I'm busting. I was like, oh, God, get upstairs.
The other thing I kind of want to note here is that Cadsuane's reaction here is very much like, I've already spanked 3 queens. Like, I don't mind doing it to you. And that was the moment that I was like, oh, she is not treating him as the Dragon Reborn. She's treating him as just another ruler. And rulers should be really high up on the totem pole, but compared to oldest Aes Sedai ever, not quite so much. Any last thoughts on her kind of dismissiveness, or we can turn our attention to Callandor, which feels like the big reveal at the end of this chapter?
Yeah, I mean, my big note here is, like, totally makes sense that, you know, Callandor was was what was acting as, like, an antenna for the taint and so on. And I have no reason to not believe Cadsuane, yet I still found myself being like, how convenient that you have to keep 2 women near Rand at all times. And it didn't naturally kind of follow to me that that's the thing that will solve this problem.
So I do think it's worth noting at this point, Cadsuane is right now the only Aes Sedai around Rand who has not sworn an oath of fealty to him, which means that she is the only one who the only thing constraining her right now are the 3 oaths. But I don't know at this point I'm that confident that she is not Black Aja, right? She's a woman who shows up out of nowhere working for the tower right after Rand is kidnapped. And I kind of find myself here going, like, how much should I believe her, even though I know that, like, if she's an Aes Sedai who's not Black Aja, she literally cannot lie.
Seems right to me, and yes, I guess my comment implied that as well, right?
Yeah,
because to say there was deception going on here, I mean, the fact, I think I'm still struggling a little with the taint. I know that basically the taint is supposed to affect all male power, right?
Yep.
That goes back to the breaking of the world, or somewhere.
Yep, no, that's right.
Yeah, okay. So then that means they all were feeling it, and they were as they touched it in this military campaign. And it does now make sense. I had wondered if it was because they were getting close to that island or whatever, but this is kind of a more logical thing, which is they brought the thing to them that amplified the taint. I just hate saying taint.
I know. It wasn't a thing. It's like in Star Wars how we had jizz music before jizz was a dirty word. It's the same here.
And so all of that means that like it feels kind of convenient, and so I don't know. I just have my suspicions about this whole narrative.
So let's then end on the last moment of this chapter, which is Rand thinking, okay, I can't use Callandor for what I had planned, so I only have one option available to me. And then he remembers what he refers to as a dead woman saying you could challenge the creator with that. Pop quiz, Greg, which dead woman told him you can challenge the creator with that?
I assumed the dark fiend who Moraine killed, whose name is blanking on.
Lanfear. Nailed it. Good work.
Yeah.
I was expecting you to say Moraine, so you are smarter than I thought.
Well, it just sounds like dark seductress,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't sound like benevolent mentor, which neither of those quite fits either of those characters, but
Yeah.
close enough.
Cool. Any last thoughts on the bargain before we dive into Crimsonthorn, which I really thought was going to be a chapter about Rand, but wasn't.
I mean, I was playing the game I usually play of maybe this is it for Rand, and it very well could be, and it seems like if that's the case, this is a big, like, here's all the problems we'll be dealing with next season. Good luck to you, sir. See you after the summer. That's a reference.
The summer is so funny.
That's a reference to when TV shows used to work on a calendar year for those young listeners. So yeah, I'm not positive. I could go either way. I don't know if I'd be upset if it was, or, you know, they might throw in one other thing. It's not totally cliffhangery, but it actually kind of fits with where Robert Jordan usually lands us. Like, big things are coming.
It feels very wrap-up-y, even if it's not like a big epic conclusion to the plot. I think I totally agree with that. Chapter 28, Crimsonthorn. Elaine thinks that the small village was the exact wrong place for an explosion. Adelias physically drags Garenia to Elaine, saying that her real name is Zarya and she is a runaway from the tower who must be punished. Before Elaine can respond, one of the other kin, Kirstian, also admits to being a runaway. Adelias says that she will be put in Novice White as well, and then Serenia says it is absurd to take them back after so long, leading to a debate between her and Rien about whether they must follow tower rules, and eventually Serenia advocates fighting back against the tower if necessary, saying that there are more of them than there are Aes Sedai. Rien says that she will punish Serenia once they get back into an area controlled by the kin, and the next day the two kin who claimed that they were runaways are suddenly wearing Novice White dresses. The tension grows over the next 8 days, and after 8 days, Lan sends a messenger for Elaine and Nynaeve. They arrive at a small hut to find that Ispan, the Black Aja, as well as Adelias, who is tending her, have both been killed in the night. Vandene apparently followed Elaine and Nynaeve and sees what happened and immediately is overcome by emotion. Ispan was apparently dosed with Crimson Fork root, which Nynaeve surmises means that the poison poisoner wanted Adelias to know who killed her, and they assume that the killer must be a member of their group. Vandene then begins cradling her sister Adelias, wailing while being guarded by her warder. It takes them 2 further days to reach Camelin, and eventually they reach the gate of the palace, where Elaine announces herself and her claim to the throne. They reach the throne room, where she touches the throne and promises to honor Morghase's memory when Lady Dylan enters. She asks if Elaine will take the throne from Rand, and Elaine says no, she means to claim it on her own, which is enough for Dylan to say that she will support Elaine. Dylan says that Aemlyn, Erethel, and Pelavar are the real worry right now because they could divert to another contender, and when Elaine asks who that contender is, she says it is Dylan herself. Elaine tells Dylan that she would eventually like to bond and marry Rand, and then she begins laying out her plans, which cause Dylan to laugh, and Elaine can't decide if she's laughing because she's delighted or laughing because Elaine is actually going to give Dylan the throne. We then switch into David Hanlon's perspective, who arrives in Camelin following orders. He spots Lady Cheyenne in the room that he enters and also sees an Aes Sedai, much to David's chagrin. She says that her orders are from Moradin, and she then tortures Jaikim Carradine until he dies. A captive Aes Sedai is then released from her bond and promises to obey. It is apparently Phaleon, one of the Black Aja who was previously in Ibu Dar. David is impressed by how well Cheyenne has broken an Aes Sedai, and she asks if David wants to put his hands on a queen, and he is enthusiastic about that possibility. So, Crimsonthorn, totally different plot, not the explosion we expected, but hey, things happened. What did we take away from this chapter?
I mean, my main reaction is it really this easy? I mean, I understand that second piece lays out a threat to Elaine, but Elaine just kind of walked into a city, went up, paid a little lip service to her mom, and is about to just sit on the throne. And I mean, I would like you to explain who this other person is and what I should remember about them. Yeah. But even with all this plotting and the potential that this will all fall apart quickly, it just felt very easy to do. So I have my suspicions of it being effective.
I think that's exactly right of the second half of the chapter. My big takeaway from this chapter was, wait, what? We started a murder mystery and then just ignored it for 15 pages? That was the thing that was odd to me. So clearly we're setting that up for a future book, but whew, that's a big deal to just be like, oh yeah, and then 2 days later they arrived in the city, which is exactly how that was phrased. Let's start at the beginning, which is one of the Aes Sedai, Adelias, outing 2 of the women as being runaways from the tower. And this is, I think, very interesting from a perspective of at least one of these women is older than anyone in the tower. And so the idea of her bringing her back for punishment is shocking. The other thing that I think is worth calling out here is that Adelias, the one who calls out these women and forces them to go back into Novice White, is then murdered 8 days later. And so we should at least be somewhat playing the murder mystery game of, is this motive?
I mean, I think I didn't think deeply enough about it because I just kind of read it as, okay, there's a traitor in the camp. But really, we've always kind of known there are traitors everywhere, that there are Aes Sedai, essentially. Like, any of them could be Black Aja. So you're suggesting directly that this is probably somebody who escaped from the tower, maybe trying to infiltrate this camp, and has ill wishes for this group.
At bare minimum, there are several women who have infiltrated this group specifically, and any one of them could be the suspect. But there are also many other possible suspects. Everyone's possibly evil in these books. I also want to call out just the debate between Rien and the other Aes Sedai, Serinya. Not Aes Sedai, I'm sorry, the other kin member, Serinya. Their debate basically seems to be Rien saying, we follow rules, and our rules say if the Aes Sedai come for someone, they can take them. And Serenya's response is like, there are like 5 of us for every one of them, right? And I kind of end up on Serenya's side. Like, even though Vandene and Adelias are aligned with the rebels and they seem to be good with Elaine and Nynaeve, I kind of think they're really overstepping here, given that the kin are a full organization they didn't know about like a month ago.
Yeah, and I guess I had trouble reading this. It's just so many names. I mean, I hate to be that guy every week, but I'm like, wait, who are these people and so on? So as I understand what you just told me, we're supposed to understand that for the most part, the kin still defer to the power of the tower, and yet there's no reason why they should do so because they are seemingly with the rebels. And so it's almost like the kin as an organization needs to update their bylaws, but until they do so, nobody can quite agree on what their actions should be.
It's both they need to update their bylaws, and there seems to be an undercurrent that their bylaws as currently constructed could be completely blown up. Like, I see Rien saying, maybe we need to update these bylaws, and Serenia saying, no, it's time for revolution. And I think it's that second piece that's really interesting to me, is the idea not just of who are we subservient to could be changing, but instead we should be subservient to no one, almost seems to be Serenia's perspective.
So revolution there doesn't necessarily mean we join the rebels and take down the tower. Revolution there means we just become ungovernable.
Exactly. Why swear allegiance to either tower seems to be her position.
I mean, that feels like a very natural question to ask. Like, hey, let's wait till these people get their stuff together and then decide if we care about them anymore.
That is exactly correct. Hey, guess what? We got a murder mystery on our hands. There's a locked room, and in that locked room is an Aes Sedai who is clearly questioning a Black Aja. The Aes Sedai was paralyzed but not immediately killed, and then the Black Aja was killed. And so there are lots of questions here, right? Was it someone who wanted to stop the Black Aja from saying something? Was it someone who had a grudge against Adelias and then just needed to kill the Black Aja so there weren't any witnesses? There's lots of possibilities here, and we don't get as many clues as I kind of want. I'm someone who reads me some Agatha Christie mysteries, and I don't have enough to try to solve this mystery on my own, and it feels a little frustrating.
Yeah, let's start with the laws of a locked door mystery a la Benoit Blanc and go through every step of this. But no, what it felt to me in the moment, so I will just repeat that here, noting I agree we don't have enough clues to solve this. It felt to me much more that this person was Black Aja, knew the interrogated Black Aja could reveal their identity and blow their cover, so they went in and killed both in case they would give up the name and in case they already had given up the name. That way they both are dead and the Black Aja remains undercover. So the fact that that would, in my mind, make them more important than the Black Aja being interrogated, that is an acceptable loss kind of without a second thought.
I think that's exactly right, and it pretty much sums up the entirety of the clues that we have gotten, with one exception, which is that the poison used on Adelias, we are told, could have killed her instantly, but was given in such a dose that she was aware of who killed her, which according to Nynaeve means the killer must have wanted Adelias to know. And so I don't think that contradicts anything that you've said. I think your interpretation is right, but we should just be paying attention to it's not just quieting the Black Aja. There's something specific to Adelias tied up in the motive for this murder, it seems. Any last thoughts? Oh, one last thing I do want to say. Hey, do you remember where Adelias and Vandene are from? Because they were introduced all the way back in Book 2. So they've been around for a while, even if they're minor characters.
Idea.
Yeah, they were the characters who, I don't know if you remember, in the second book, Moraine just goes off to read some books in a seaside cabin, and Adelias and Vandene are the ones who own that cabin.
Okay. I'll take it.
So, they die, and then we skip forward 2 days because there's no more murder mystery in this chapter for some reason. Elaine does very easily just ride into the city, and I think that tells us that no one else has at least made it into Caemlyn and claimed the throne, right? She then has this touching moment in the throne room, I will live up to you, Morgaze. I have nothing to say about that. Then Dylan arrives. And Dylan, I believe, is the character you wanted a little bit of an update on. So Dylan is a very, very minor character up to this point. We know that she is one of the, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. It's maybe 12 High Lords of Camelin, the ones who have a direct link back to the original queen and thus could potentially claim the throne. We've learned that when there is a succession, it's typically decided by who has the majority of those high ladies or high lords on their side. And she seems to be a very important one. And we've also heard in the past that she was the first to join Morgaze's side in the previous War of Succession. We also know she was one of the nobles who Morgaze had treated very well up until she fell under the sway of a Forsaken, and then was like summarily kicked out of the city because the Forsaken controlling Morgaze didn't want any of her allies around. And so it's both notable that she is backing Elaine. That means she's not fully holding on to the grudges from the end of Morgaze's time. But it's also clear early on in this section that she is not 100% on Elaine's side. If Elaine was taking the throne offered to her by Rand, she was planning on standing against her. And so going from Morgaze's kind of closest ally to on the fence feels like the kind of fight that Elaine is going to have to win if she wants to win over the rest of the lords necessary for her to become queen.
Well, and I think within that is the revelation that like she's the best candidate other than Elaine, right? So it's not even just she has to win her over, but like that this is the competition plus the potentially your biggest supporter. It seems really interesting as a bit of tension. I didn't really care that much about her, and I guess I mean we're building up to her like big laughter at the end. I really didn't know how to take it because it felt to me like Elaine laid it out how it seems to be what the plan is. And at one time, I think like that sounds too easy, as I said at my opening remarks. And the second time, I think like, well, that is the plan. And yet it would sound absurd to somebody not in on it, right? So like I think where I'm sitting is this is exactly what Rand told Elaine to expect, so there's no reason to think this is not going to happen, and yet because it feels so easy, I kind of expect it not to happen anymore. But I can't point to any clues in Rand's behavior that this would change, like, or that he wouldn't be deferential to Elaine. So I'm left kind of like, I think it's more just that it sounds so absurd and easy that, oh, I'm going to marry him and bond him and all this. I mean, it's not like she would know about Min, right? Because Min hasn't really been in Camelin, right? She's mainly stayed in Carrion and...
Yeah, are you saying Dylan wouldn't know about Min, or are you saying Elaine wouldn't? Yeah, Dylan wouldn't know about Min. That is correct.
Okay. So, I mean, it was a hard moment to read, but I think that's exactly what Robert Jordan wanted, because even the character is reacting that way, like, I don't know why she's laughing like this. That's weird.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. This is an intentionally really up-in-the-air question, and we should just be keeping an eye on Dylan, right? If there are names that we should be picking up at the end of this book that we know are going to carry over to the next one, this feels like a guarantee. Dylan is now a key part of this plot line. We then switch into our final perspective of the night, and David Hanlon, who luckily we got briefly reminded of in the previous chapter. He was originally one of the leaders of, I keep forgetting which Forsaken it was, who was in Camelin and had Morgaze in his thrall. But that Forsaken had David Hanlon as the head of his army. When he fell, he fled into Cairhien and joined the rebels along with Padden Fane. And now we learn when the rebellion collapsed, he was given orders by a dark friend and arrived back in Camelin. David Hanlon, a bad dude, is basically the only summary I can give you about what we know about this man. That being said, where he arrives, stuff is going down. Jaikim Carradine, who has been a villain since the prologue of the second book, is killed by too much brandy. And Phaleon, who was one of the Black Aja, who also has been a villain since the second book, has apparently been captured, broken, and is now under Moradin's orders. And both of those feel like huge changes among a bunch of Dark Friends who Greg forgot their name.
I mean, it felt to me, despite everything you just said being accurate, it felt to me like whichever Marvel movie it is where the after credit scene is Thanos saying like, very well, I guess I'll have to do it myself. And it just felt like we've cleared the board of these lesser bosses, and they ended up being so insignificant in comparison to Moradin. Which, I mean, every time Moradin shows up, the lesson is like, hey, this is way worse, way bigger a threat than anything we've seen before. And this is just like, yeah, I don't need these stupid little pieces on my board anymore. I'm just going to own it. And so, that to me is probably the most interesting of the cliffhangery bits we've talked about tonight.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I want to mention about this is we get the name Lady Cheyenne, which is not a name that we have seen before. And so I'm left wondering, is this a cover for one of the female one of the female Forsaken? Possibly, I believe it was in the prologue of this book, we were introduced to a new woman who knew some things the Forsaken did, but hadn't been identified as a Forsaken. I'm wondering if it's her. I think Sindane was the name we were given for her. But this could also just be like a dark friend who's a noble and is so high up that she gets orders from Moradin. I'm kind of unclear about who the lady in charge of this torture room is.
That sounds great. I like cover for another Aes Sedai. We know
Forsaken,
there's a gender changing one. Or sorry, Forsaken.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I will just say, in case it came through in the audio, for some reason there was like a hiccup when you said new woman, and it sounded like you said nude woman. And I was like, well, it is Robert Jordan, so
That
it could be like
correct.
50-50 shot anyway. So
her dress wasn't described, so we can probably infer that was the case. We know how he functions. Women be naked is basically the simple description. Next week, we have 3 chapters, and we will finish this book. We'll be reading chapter 29, A Cup of Sleep, chapter 30, Beginnings, and the itty-bitty teeny-tiny chapter 31, After. Greg, what are you expecting? We've got maybe like 30 pages left. Something's got to happen, right?
I don't know. I don't care. Just be quiet. I need to go upstairs and read. Thanks, everybody. Tune in next week. Through the Glass Columns.